Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. This is, we're going to kick off the afternoon session for the FY27 operating budget and FY27-32 capital improvements program. We are actually going to start with item 9, the chair's office. If you can please come forward, and I'm going to turn it to the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Chair Katz, to kick us off.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Welcome to the Sheriff and the Sheriff's Department. The County Executive recommended an increase of $51,660 or 0.16% for the Sheriff's Office, a continuation of current staffing and service levels. The Public Safety Committee recommended adding the following to the reconciliation list: the rebalancing of workloads previously supported by grant funds at $178,043 for 1.31 FTEs. The committee also voted to reduce $10,483 for the taser and body-worn camera contract to match invoice amount. And with that, with your indulgence, I'd like to turn it over to either to the sheriff or Mr. Anbonder.
Thank you. Nothing to add from council staff at this time.
So good afternoon, honorable council members. I just would like to say again, I appreciate the process. I fully recognize we're in a very challenging budget season. I know you have a lot of very difficult decisions to make, and I understand that you recognize the importance of what we do at the Sheriff's Office as the law enforcement of the court system and the unique role we fill. I would like to identify, I'm joined this afternoon by Assistant Sheriff Keena Jones, Ms. Mona Cabrera, who is my budget person, and also Ms. Smita Varia, Senior Program Manager from our Family Justice Center. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for that opening. I don't see anybody wanting to speak. You have done a great job. Thank you so much for being here. And with that, we have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And the motion passes. Thank you for coming today.
All right, thank you each. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I'm trying to check if HOC is ready. If not, we can, no, let's keep them. It's okay. It's okay. We're going to go to item 10, and it's Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation non-departmental account. If our friends from MCEDC and the account executives team move forward. I'm actually the chair of that committee. Give me 1 second. The Economic Development Committee. So let me open it up. We are at item 10. Where is Mr. Ali? We are not starting until he gets here. So give us a second. I laugh these days.
I have a feeling we found him. Yeah.
He has been found.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Economic Development Committee met on this particular item, and I just want to say we, not just the Economic Development Committee, but the entire council is very appreciative of the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. You have been in times of transition, and it has been great working with your new CEO, Mr. Smith, who I know that he couldn't make it today, but he's very well represented. And we are going to have some motions later on. So I'm just going to, you know what, I'm just going to turn it to staff so you can go through that packet if there is anything specific, and then I'm going to open it up to colleagues to share any ideas.
Sure. The only report out from committee was that the county executives recommended enhancement of $330,000, I believe, was placed on the reconciliation list as per the council president's approach. That's it.
Is there anything that you would like to share? Can you turn on your mic?
Thank you. It's new for me. Hello, so I'm Jessica Reynolds. I'm the COO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation as of 3 weeks ago. And I'm joined by our new Vice President of Business Development, Danny Chavez, and my colleague Preyas, who's also the Director of Economic Development. I would like to start by saying Jared does extend his apologies that he cannot be here in person with us today, as he had a family obligation that he could not move. And we appreciate the Council's partnership and support of economic development. MCEDC is one of only a few revenue generating investments that the county makes, and our focus remains on attracting investment, supporting business growth, retaining jobs, and strengthening Montgomery County's long-term competitiveness. As an organization, we're committed to delivering the best possible economic development outcomes for the county, and we've committed to new leadership, including myself, my colleague, over the next year. That includes completing the countywide strategic plan, our associated action plan as part of that strategic planning process, continuing to strengthen collaboration with partners across the county, and ensuring our activities are aligned with measurable economic outcomes and priorities set by our county and council partners. And we look forward to continuing to partner with the council in our mission to drive the economy forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And it was definitely a 4-0 committee recommendation. This is the only committee on the council that we have where we have 4 members. That's why it's a 4-0. I do want to highlight a topic that we discussed, and not just once, but several times, but we made it to the we wanted to really make sure that it wouldn't happen. So, and I'm just going to read the language. As you all know, the county executive has some trouble across the world. I have personally been with him in Taiwan, same thing with the council vice president. But we wanted to ensure that for the remainder of the year, there will not be any county executive travel in calendar year 2026. So we added the language that you all can see on page 1, and it reads, if the council concurs with the committee's recommendation, council staff will include this language. This resolution appropriates $5.731,527 million to the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation non-departmental account. The appropriation must not be used to fund county executive travel in calendar year 2026. I hope the rest of the council can agree with that. And the other part that I wanted to mention is that in the fall, the committee is this is gonna be in conjunction with the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. We'll be discussing what's really the strategy behind these trips. They're very important, but there has to be a strategy attached to it. And that's gonna be part of the conversations that will take place in the fall time. So we don't have anybody, the next county executive could have a random idea of where they should go. That should be something planned with the Economic Development Corporation and not by whoever is in office. So that was what's behind this language. And I'm going to turn it to Mr. Ken. Herman Espada, in case if he has anything else to add.
Thank you, Council President Fountain Gonzalez. I appreciate and we all appreciate the partnership with the Econ Committee and with members of the Council on Economic Development. There has been a remarkable turnaround in the engagement with MCEDC. We're very pleased with the progress they've made. There's more progress to come, and over the next year as they work on the Economic Development Strategic Plan, it's critical that they continue their high-level work to create and attract jobs, to build long-term resilience, to enhance the private sector confidence in Montgomery County as a place to do business, and position the county for recovery post-Trump. So they're hiring up, as you see here at the table. They are engaging with us on important issues like site selection. I don't know if those of you who've taken advantage of being part of the FAM tours. There's one next week. Where they bring in site selectors to give them a tour, tell them, explain the benefits of being here in Montgomery County, one of the most resource-rich, talent-rich places in the nation. So I'll leave it there, but I want to thank the committee for its support, and and just express the executive team's appreciation for the progress MCDC has made.
Thank you for saying that. The other part, since you mentioned it too, we look forward to having your strategic plan draft in July, not just being sent to the county executive. It's going to be sent to the entire council as agreed on, and I had to say that once again on the record. I'm going to open it up to committee members. I'm going to start with Councilmember Wojowondo.
Thank you, Madam President, and appreciate MCDC being here today. Thank you. And I've had great conversations with Jared and some of the team members, and excited about the direction and role of the organization. It's critically important to making sure that we have steady leadership at the organization because of your mission to help us grow our economy and invest in strategically in our key areas of growth. And the strategic plan is important for that, obviously. Obviously, in the context we're in, we're losing federal jobs. The attacks from the administration, it's even more important than it was. And you do great work. So I just want to preface with all of that. I've been going through this process with colleagues for the week where I'm bringing up certain enhancements because we're in a very, very difficult budget. And I've been around. I remember when MCDC started. I remember its first CEO, and I remember there was a big marketing initiative at that time. That was a lot of money spent on that. And that's always something you have to obviously have budget for. It's part of telling the story about who we are. So one of the enhancements that was recommended was a $338,000 for, quote, expanded marketing and advertising to support countywide economic development efforts. And obviously, again, that's going to be a part of what you're doing holistically as part of your job. OMB had flagged in the staff report that MCDC has approximately $1.8 million in net assets. That's a cushion that you could draw on for opportunistic marketing without county general fund funds in this really difficult year, in my view, when we're trying to figure out how to fund schools and working family support. I want to support your mission. You were not on my list as far as broad, deep cuts because it's such an important mission, but this is one that I wanted to ask you about, and I'm considering making a motion to remove. And I did want to give you an opportunity to talk about one, what you see, why this request was made, and then if it were removed, how you would proceed in the marketing area if you didn't have access to the funds, to this portion.
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. So one of the things that MCDC does is we have been very active in our site selection strategy, and that's partly because the council has talked to us about the importance of that, and the county executive's office has talked to us about the importance of that. And a key component of that is highlighting the true assets that we have in front of the site selectors, right? So everyone knows that Montgomery County has a highly skilled talent, but there are very few people that know that this is the third largest life sciences ecosystem in the country. So if you talk to some of the site selectors, they will tell you Raleigh is in front of us, but really in data, when you look at it, we are in front of that. And that's largely because we haven't been able to do as good of a job of telling our own story. And as you mentioned, Councilmember, this year is extremely important for us to add new private sector jobs. And in order for us to do that, we do need to be in front of the site selectors. We do need to be in front of the decision makers to help them understand why this should be located here. And in regards to your question about that funding not being there, we would just have to cut down on a lot of the work that we're going to be doing around site selection initiative.
So a little more specifically, is there you have other budget flexibility? You could market with other funds, right?
Yes. So the budget that we have right now is based on using the reserve funds that the organization already has. So if you look at the page 2 of the recommendations, the overall budget for MCEDC is $6.2 million, and what the county executive proposed is not going to fill that $6.2 million. So there is plan to already use the reserves to make sure that the budget is whole for $6.2 million.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think obviously we're in tough times, and I really support your mission. So, but I think in light of where we are, I'd like to move that we remove that $338,924 from the reconciliation list.
We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Mink. Do you have no. I'm gonna open it up to Council Vice President Balcon.
Thank you. I've been doing that all day. I pushed my button to talk about the reserves, so I want to mention that. So one of the issues with the reserves, and we've we've talked at the board. I'm the liaison to the board. We've talked a lot about the reserves, and one of the things that we need to be clear about is that that MCDC is an independent nonprofit entity that doesn't have access to other capital, and so they need the reserves to pay payroll and to pay rent and to have that. And so depending on the flow of cash from the county, they really can't be left short because these are people's paychecks. So I just wanted to mention that from the perspective of the reserve account. I'm not going to vote in favor of the motion. I think leaving it on the reconciliation list, like we've talked about all day today, we have to have options, and leaving it on the reconciliation list, to me, is a good option. Thank you.
Thank you very much for saying that, Council Vice President Balcon. She's not just a member of the Econ Committee. As she mentioned, she's the liaison for the Council MCEDC. And I also will not support the motion for the same reasons that she stated. I'm going to turn it back to Councilmember Will Jawando.
Sorry, I just forgot to say this too. Some silver lining, you may win anyway, it may not pass, but the 2.5% inflationary adjustment, obviously there was a motion yesterday, with full council support, that I made to increase that. You would be a beneficiary of whatever that increases as well, so hopefully you get something through that. But thank you.
Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you, Madam President. Understand and appreciate we're in a tough spot. I'm happy that we rejected the property tax increase proposed by the county executive. Understand that puts us in a really difficult position and closing a very large gap while trying to attend to the structural deficit that came with the proposed FY27 budget. I will say that the tax question is part of the economic development conversation, and so I do think they're related. We have to make Montgomery County more affordable for residents, more competitive for businesses. I do think that matters. But I also think that in our deliberations, there has been a quick move, oftentimes, to fill gaps last year and this year in looking immediately to economic development, to look at the funding that we have to bring jobs, to attract new companies, to try to incentivize new investment in Montgomery County that we desperately need. And I understand and absolutely agree with the desire to protect schools and safety net services, public safety, and to support our public employees. But we also have to keep our eye on the big picture and understand how we actually pay for those priorities. Our economy has stagnated. Our needs are growing. Economic growth is the only way to sustainably and consistently grow our revenues without asking residents to pay more. That's why we have to be intentional. We have to be committed to economic development in a serious way. We can't do that by consistently going after the Economic Development Corporation's budget or Economic Development Fund resources. Just context here, according to council staff, the economic development funding in the current budget represents 0.6% of the overall funding. So I just think it's important for us to note that investment here does matter. I know there's a shared commitment not to burden residents with tax increases. And I just think it's important that we put in context the investments that we make for the economic growth that we need in order to fund the priorities that we have. I'm very happy that we're not talking about going deeply into the Economic Development Corporation budget right now. That's not part of the discussion, that we're only talking about the increase year over year, but I do think the context here of why economic development broadly matters and why support for the designated economic development entity that we have established matters is important. I'm not going to support the motion and just think it's really important that as we move forward here, we understand that economic development is only 0.6% of the overall budget, and yet it is the way in which we fund every other priority that we're talking about here by generating the revenues and the resources that we need. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Fritzen. Just so everybody's clear, this $338,000, almost $339,000 that Councilmember Jawando put in his motion is on the reconciliation list. Make sure that's clear. As I know you said it, but I just want everybody to have that clarity. I'm going to move on with Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I, too, will not be supporting the motion. And I candidly am not pleased. I understand why, but I'm not pleased that you're thinking about using the reserves. Reserves shouldn't be first line, which you use. Reserves should be, oh my gosh, we're running out of money here, and that's what reserves are supposed to be for. This is an investment for our county. And quite candidly, you're right. We have not told our story well. And we probably have not told our story well since this MCEDC has been started. I mean, to be quite frank, we have not done a good job. The idea when this whole thing started was, look, Howard County does a great job. We're going to do what Howard County does. We're taking it out of the as county employees and whatever, going to be the separate corporation that is going to save our world. It didn't. And of course, times became tough and times have become tougher. But this, to take away your reserve, to take away your investment is not going to get us to a better place. What we need is to figure out, I was always told that if business was bad, you need to advertise more. You don't advertise less. And that becomes the idea for this. So I think we need to be doing our businesses, your business, like businesses would be doing, and we need to get ourselves back on track. So I do not believe this is a good idea. I will not support the motion. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Katz. Next, Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to hear colleagues' input and to hear your input. I think that's helpful as we go into the reconciliation process. And I also think that it makes sense that given that, I think what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding is that if we're able to give you this funding, it's going to be of value, and we're looking for return on investment in all of the dollars that we're spending in all of the places. So I think it makes sense to keep this in the mix, and I appreciate the context here, which of course we're going to be weighing against the context of all the other budget lines. So I would note that if we want to create more options, that I would be amenable to leaving it on the rec list in tranches, or just leaving it as it is for further discussion. But tranches would allow for greater flexibility in discussions if colleagues were interested in that. Thanks.
Are you making a friendly amendment to his motion, to Councilmember Jawando's motion?
I think I'm going to let the conversation continue and see, and then I'll let Councilmember Jawando decide how he wants to handle that. But
I mean,
I'm going to
I
defer
can
to
see where
colleagues.
this is heading. So if folks are amenable to that, I'm happy to tranche it, break it in half, so it gives us options. Leave it on the rec list and break it in half if folks are okay with that.
We can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll change my motion to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just saying, okay. Councilmember Glass.
Not saying I agree, but right. Thank you for the collaborative spirit, which is on full display for everybody. As has been said, but needs to be restated, this body has rejected property tax increases. We are facing fiscal challenges where we're trying to find revenue for much needed programs and services. And if we are not moving forward with those tax increases, as we are not, then we need to find the revenue elsewhere. That is what MCEDC was created for, finding businesses, encouraging them to move here, helping them expand here, creating greater economic opportunity. You are the way we will help increase revenue, and you need your budget whole.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Lori Ann Sells.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to our panelists from MCDC. Sorry, Mr. Smith is not able to join us. I am thinking of what Councilmember Katz said about more marketing for sharing who Montgomery County is and us really controlling the narrative of how we attract and retain businesses. We're funding MCEDC to create a return on our investment and to bolster our economy. We just heard from the Green Bank this morning about how much we're investing and the return on the investment. As the funders of this entity, this corporation, it would be helpful to be partners in reviewing the marketing materials that are being creative. I know that there was a position that was eliminated. We've talked about this before. And it would be helpful to understand how you are communicating the assets and benefits of Montgomery County to the broader community to attract and retain businesses. The Be Next initiative that came up was, we really didn't see a return on that investment. And so to say that we need a couple $100,000 for communications and marketing is, a pretty significant ask when we don't know what is being communicated. So I just want to, I'll be supportive of the tranches that Councilmember Jawando is considering. If he wants to, since it's already on the reconciliation list. I don't want to handicap this entity before they even get started, before the strategic plan is finished. So is there something you wanted to say, Madam President?
Oh, no. I'm waiting for you to finish your thoughts.
Thank you. So as I am, reviewing the difficult decisions that still await us, I want to make sure you have all the resources that you have to do the job to your best ability to market our county. And just want to also welcome the new staff to the team. Welcome to Team Montgomery County. Thank you for taking on this challenge, and we look forward to working with you in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is to, again, put it in tranches in the reconciliation list, in half. That's the motion. I'm going to now turn it to Council Vice President Balcom.
It's Friday. I'm usually not sitting here on a Friday. I'm going to support the motion to put in tranches. It's a difficult choice in that if I knew that my colleagues were going to all vote in favor of it, I want to keep it whole. If somebody has doubts, then I want to give the option of 2 tranches. It's a difficult decision, but I will support the 2 tranches. But I do just want to reiterate what several of my colleagues have already said. We need more revenue in the county, and the MCDC is responsible for bringing jobs here. And so I hope that everyone will support both tranches. Thank you.
I think that's also very well said, because the Economic Development Committee spent over a year, as soon as we created the committee back in December of 2022, really analyzing what's the function of the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. And at the end of this whole year, after different work sessions and interactions and conversations and so on, we decided that they have 3 goals: business attraction, business retention, and marketing. So this is why when I heard the motion, I was like, no, that marketing is part of the 3 legs. We can't do it, we have to support them. But as my colleague just said, if there is a possibility of having this particular item being completely removed from the reconciliation list by the time we vote next week, I'd rather have the opportunity of having a split and having having the motion breaking in two, so there is a likelihood that at least you'll get some and not nothing. So for that, because of that change, I will support the amended motion. Also with the hope that next week we won't touch this just because it's part of their main mission as the council requested them to do, especially in this critical time when they have a brand new, CEO with staff and they're working on this strategic plan that they must advertise to the world so we can have those private jobs. I'm going to turn it now to Councilmember Shevra Evans.
Thank you, Madam President. So I had the pleasure of sitting down and having lunch with Mr. Smith, our new CEO. So I'm super excited about all the plans and ideas he has for Montgomery County. And I absolutely want to give our new CEO and staff the opportunity to do all the things. And my hope is that the situation that we're sitting in now, that it won't be like that in the future. And we can't rely and depend on that if we don't support the work of MCEDC. So I associate myself with the comments of Vice President Balcom and our president that I'm going to support both tranches. So it pains me to hear us talk about doing it in this way, but we'll try to make sure that you're protected and you're able to do the work that we need you to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion in front of us to split $338,000 on the reconciliation list for expanded marketing and advertising to support countywide economic development efforts by MCEDC. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Now, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. So now, is there a motion to approve the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation non-departmental account as amended? Moved by Council Vice President Malcolm, second by Councilmember Don Luque. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you so much for all your efforts, and welcome to Montgomery County. Now, I'm going to go back and go to, I think our friends from HOC are ready, right? So we're going to go back to item 8, Housing Opportunities Commission non-departmental account. And as people come down, I'm going to turn it to the chair of the PHP committee, Chair Fritzen.
Thank you, Madam President. The county executive recommended an increase of the HOC NDA of $378,371, just over a 4% increase from the FY26 approved operating budget. The executive's recommended increase includes no funding for programmatic or staffing enhancements. The entirety comprises compensation adjustments and required operating expenses that reflect continuation of current staffing and service levels. The PHP committee voted 3-0 to recommend approval of the FY27 operating budget for HOC NDA as recommended by the executive. The committee did also vote 3-0 pending review by County Bond Counsel to add the following provision to the language in the council's budget resolution: that HOC's commission shall have the ability to grant short-term extensions to allow a housing production fund loan to remain outstanding in a project for longer than 5 years if there is a gap before the next project requires funding. In response to the committee's request for review, Bond Counsel has confirmed that the provision is not prohibited by any legal restriction, does not cause concerns for our bonding. The Department of Finance recommends limiting any extension granted by the commission to 6 months up to a maximum of 1 year. So I will, at the end of my comments, will move that as an amendment to the committee's recommendation based on the recommendation from the Department of Finance and with the blessing of Bond Counsel. But I'll just complete my report and then I'll go back and do that at the end if that pleases you, Madam President. In addition, the committee voted 3-0 to place the following HOC requested items on the reconciliation list: partial contribution to resident services portion of new headquarters building costs, that was $272,000. Parking offset for HOC employees at new headquarters building, that's $200,000. The committee further voted 3-0 to recommend approval of the following 3 CIP projects as recommended. Elizabeth House demolition, Cider Mill Apartments capital improvements, supplemental funds for deeply subsidized HOC-owned unit improvements. I'll just note that we had a number of other requests that came before the committee. We whittled that down significantly to focus only on the priority areas, the areas of greatest needs to serve those most at risk being served by HOC, and to make sure that we really try to be fiscally prudent with the request that we put forward. And so ultimately, that's what this reflects. We did not place a number of items on the reconciliation list, and we reduced the amounts of a number of items on the reconciliation list. And so those are not, at least according to the committee's recommendation, up for discussion at this time, notwithstanding our general support for much of what was put forward, just given the fiscal constraints that we're in, the need to prioritize what we have. I'll just note the motion on the 3-0 vote related to the language related to the Housing Production Fund. I'll move that language be added to limit that extension granted by the Commission up to a maximum of 1 year, so 6 months up to a maximum of 1 year, that be reflected in the budget language. And before I move that, I just want to explain this to colleagues. We talked about it extensively. Essentially, the situation is that there is a payback period. And the question is, if HOC does not need to encumber the funds for the next project immediately, it is better for HOC, for public housing, for the affordability of a project, to allow them to leave the money in the old project for a little bit longer so that they have the opportunity, for instance, to get a preferential interest rate on the long-term capital finance. Because the way that the Housing Production Fund works, it's short-term financing for the construction of a project until the project can stabilize. And once the project can stabilize with cash flow, it then goes out to the market to get private financing to backstop the project. And what this does is there's situations where the 5% interest rate that this would still continue to pay would be cheaper than the market rate issuance of debt that would have to be incurred. And so we would be moving money by force into an account to sit and wait for the next deal to occur, while HOC, as part of a social housing, affordable housing project, would have to pay more for the debt potentially. So it doesn't require it. It just gives them a little bit of extra flexibility. It's not going to be millions of dollars of savings, but it could be tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even a couple $100,000 in savings, depending on the size of the project. And frankly, that could mean paying for resident services in that type of project, the very type of things that we're talking about, frankly, on the reconciliation list to fund. So this is a cost-free way for us to be a little bit more flexible and allow them a little bit of opportunity to weigh based on where the market is. And so I hope with the indulgence of colleagues that you'll support that motion with the recommendation, which we appreciate from finance, that this not be an open-ended way to have a short-term loan turn into a long-term loan.
So we have a motion on the table, second by Council Member Jawondo. Before I open it up for colleagues, are there any comments from HOC?
Yes, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be before you. I will just reiterate what we say every time we come before this council. This partnership is a tremendous benefit, not just for HOC, but for the entire Montgomery County. We are a model that continues to get lifted up in many ways. I don't know if you know, but we are trending again in New York Times because our colleagues in Chattanooga are mirroring our HPF, and we are cited as the model to follow. And so I just want to just lift up that really the reason why we are unique and able to do what we do is this partnership that we have, this wonderful partnership with the council, with the county, and thank you. Definitely a very difficult budget year, so we appreciate the committee working with us and thinking creatively on how we can advance many of our requests. And just again, thank you so much for the continued support.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. I don't see anybody having a question. All those in favor on the motion, please raise your hand. Against? No, that has to be yes. Okay. Yes, the motion passes. Chair Fritzen, was there anything else?
Nope, that is the entirety of the committee's recommendation now as amended.
As amended. Anything else from council staff to add before I call on the vote?
Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. No problem at all. Just one thing to follow up on committee. That was one follow-up item. There was another related to the county garage absorption, whether the parking offset for HOC employees at the new property. And were you able to learn more about that issue and just maybe state that on the record? I know we had asked about that.
Sure, thank you. The executive branch conducted some additional research into how parking reimbursement is done in similar situations with other non-county agencies, determined that one potential analog would be the way that MNC PPC covers parking for its employees in the Wheaton parking lot district garage, which is MNC PPC provides a stipend to its employees for transportation, which they can use for parking or for transit. There's no specific line item in the MNC PPC budget for that, but it does come from MNC PPC's overall budget.
Okay, so in light of that, I mean, that was the idea, is that could the county absorb parking for the employees as opposed to that being a line item in the budget? And so it sounds like you're saying, yes, it could? Or
My suggestion is the recommendation to add the additional funding. The funding that MNC PPC has is received from the county somewhere in the budget, and so this line item would be providing for that.
So we think we still need it.
Would keep it.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, we want people to be able to park, but we were trying to see if there's a way to, absorb that in another place. But thank you for the response.
Thank you for looking into that. And with that, is there a motion to approve the Housing Opportunities Commission non-departmental account budget as amended? Moved by Councilmember Andrew Fritzen, second by Councilmember Don Lukey. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
So now we are going to move to item 11, and that's Worksource Montgomery non-departmental account. And give me a second. So I see the Executive Director of Worksource Montgomery, Mr. Featherstone here. This is also an Economic Development Committee item. The committee recommendations are the county executive recommended an enhancement funding of $170,000 for 2 positions in the App County American Job Center, the career advisor and the business service consultant. The committee voted to reduce the funding by half to $85,000 and recommended Worksource Montgomery only hire the career advisor because of the overlap with the business service consultant position in the work of the business center team, which has, by the way, is doing an incredible job. So I had to say that. As per my approach, the reduced enhancement of $85,000 was placed on the reconciliation list. The committee also voted to reduce funding for the Federal Workforce Career Center by $240,000, so that the total funding for the for Worksource Montgomery for the FWCC reflects a 12-month budget. The county executives recommended budget assume a 15-month ongoing budget for that. And I'm going to turn it now to council staff for anything else that I missed. And before I ask colleagues to see if I have any questions, I'm going to ask, Mr. Featherstone, if there's anything that you would like to share with us today. Anything else? Yes, you may.
Sure. So good afternoon. I'm here with my colleague Jessica Sufu, who's the Deputy Director for Worksource Montgomery. Just really quickly, I want to say, thank you to Council President. Thank you to our council members for all of your partnership and support. It's really, critical that we receive local support from a workforce standpoint, because whether it's a, more competitive labor market, whether it's federal reductions, increased costs, people are looking for help more than ever, whether it's from our social safety net providers or from our workforce development providers. And I think one thing that really denotes that is that Montgomery County's American Job Centers have seen 1,000 more individuals than any other job center within the county. And so this is why, our request is, more important than ever, because we just got word that Maryland's federal workforce funds will be cut by 10% again for FY27. And so for context for Worksource Montgomery, that puts us flat level to where we were in FY22, or $2 million less than we had in FY24 with increased demand. And so your support allows us to continue to serve young adults, continue to serve, summarized participants, our returning citizens, all work that in our last economic development impact report, puts $150 million in wages in the pockets of Montgomery County residents. And so, with that, I'll say thank you for your support. And as always, we're looking forward to continuing our work together.
And thank you for the amazing work that you do. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. We have a recommendation by the Economic Development Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you very much for coming today. We're going to move on to item 12, is the Department of Permitting Service. If our friends from DPS can come forward. We have Director Sabakan here. And this is also an Economic Development Committee item. So the committee voted for a flat, we spent a significant amount of time, let me just say that, dealing with the fee increases that were recommended by the county executive. So I'm just gonna go through what we decided. It was a very lively conversation. The committee voted for a flat fee increase of 15%. For all permits, so that's commercial and residential, so people understand. This is the modification for the county executive's recommendation to increase commercial permits by 25% and residential permits by 10%. We decided everybody gets 15%, so that's a flat fee. The committee voted 4-0 against funding a position to support the fast track for commercial permits, and the committee voted 2-2. It was a split vote regarding the county executive recommended one full-time employee for fire code enforcement, and this is to implement Bill 21-25, which is a very important bill, and that position will cost $157,000 or so. And DPS and OMB staff also clarified the need to restore $756,000 for a computer maintenance contract. The committee supported the recommendation and it was not added on the reconciliation list. Remember that DPS has a enterprise fund. So I'm gonna turn it now to council staff for anything else that I missed. No, nothing else? Okay. And now I'm gonna turn it to the director, Sabakan. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, just good afternoon, council, President, Madam President, this is Rabia Sabakan, Director, DPS. I'll just reiterate again, our mission is pretty straightforward at DPS. We're ensuring the safety of our citizens, businesses, and but at the same time, we also have a responsibility, you'll see in our mission statement, economic vitality. So it's a delicate balance ensuring, safety for code compliance, both building, fire, and quality of life through zoning ordinance as well. But the economic development is equally critical. I'm sure you can agree. And that, is how we streamline our processes and how we are constantly doing things to make things easier in the county. So safety and economic vitality, and I think that's evinced in the two enhancement requests. We thought we were doing, a trade-off with a long-standing M2 position that we, got rid of, and we were looking to repurpose on the fast track. And the fast track essentially is, I've stated it before, commercial is probably one of the more critical sections of the department. Small businesses come in, instead of going through the typical 30-day process for review and subsequently inspections, if you have someone with a skill set that's inherently productive and efficient, you can have someone review those permits in essentially, days or same day, as opposed to the 30-day time frame. And that's really, the mindset, the concept with the fast track on the commercial. And as far as the fire FCC inspector, you know the bill that was passed. We want to make sure that we are truly enforcing, as intended, and having that additional resource ensures that we're not being selective in enforcing what we want in terms of fulfilling that safety and carrying out our mission. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Again, I mentioned it a moment ago, but let me just say it one more time. All positions for DPS, they all come from the enterprise fund. So I want to say that one more time. It's not like we're saving money for the operating budget. This is enterprise fund. We do need to make a motion here because for the one person, full-time person to implement Bill 21-25, which is the emergency safety plans for multifamily apartment buildings, I need a motion, and I need a second because we need to make a decision. And again, this is not money that we're saving for operating. This is enterprise money. So can I please get a motion? Thank you, Councilmember Stewart. Can I get a second by Councilmember Mink? I don't see anybody wants to. Can somebody make a point so we can?
I guess
what's your motion?
I'll make the point. Thank you to the council president for pointing out this is from the where the money comes from for this position. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's worked on this. This has been a long process to get the regs in place and everything else. And now that we are requiring these emergency safety plans of our multifamily buildings, we need to make sure they're put in place appropriately, and that our residents know of them. As we know, we have many multifamily buildings in Montgomery County. We are in the state of Maryland, have the most multifamily buildings that are grandfathered in and are not fully sprinklered. I'm not opening up that debate again. However, if we have older buildings that do not have sprinkler systems throughout them, we must have emergency safety plans in place that our residents know about. So that we avoid future tragedies and misplacements that we've had. So I just ask that we move this position forward.
So we have a motion to add one position, and it was second. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak on it. All those in favor of the motion to add one full-time person for the fire code enforcement, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. So now we're gonna vote on the actual the DPS budget. Is there a motion to approve the Department of Permitting Services budget as amended? Yes. Moved by Council Vice President Malcolm, second by Councilmember Don Lukey. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you very much for your time. And we're gonna move on to item 13, and that is the Economic Development Fund. And I'm gonna wait for Mr. Harman Espada to come forward, and Mr. Dennis Hedman, and Nadia Khan, Doris Bacala. Okay, so we have, this is another Economic Development Committee item. The committee unanimously concurred with the county executive recommendation of the same service budget for the Economic Development Fund. So I'm just going to highlight the key issues that we discussed. For the committee discussed the need to review the fiscal sustainability of the MOVE program after FY27 budget work session. So that's another exciting fall work session. Lots of stuff for econ in the fall time. But this program has been highly successful, and we need to think about what changes we should be placing as requirements for the MOVE program, or if we're going to keep it unlimited for everybody to apply. I mean, there's a limited amount of money, folks, and I think we have talked about money a lot. That's every single day, in trying to figure out how we can come up with funds to pay for all the services and needs that we have. So that conversation will happen in the fall. Then there are two issues related to the fiscal sustainability of the program, the low barrier to entry and the backlog. And that's all associated with the MOVE program. Again, a very exciting program, but we do need to go back and take a look on, I'm going to say guardrails to ensure that it is efficient and that it meets reality with our limited funds. The committee also noted the lack of authorization legislation for that, but we already dealt with that recently, so I'm not going to go over that for the sunset bill on the SBIR and STTR. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to now, before I turn it to colleagues, I'm going to ask council staff, is there anything that I missed for this particular item? Nope. Beautiful. And then I'm going to open it to Council Vice President Merrill Balcom.
I thought that we have an updated numbers for the funds balances?
Yeah, I mean, we're prepared to talk through the fund balance
Okay.
for the EDF as needed.
So yes, I would, can.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, I can go through the fund balance. Sorry, I just needed to affirm the question there. So there is a fund balance in the EDF. It's sort of currently a two-headed beast where there's the ongoing annual appropriation of $4.1 million, and that's where the MOVE program, EDF, GLP, SBIR, CTR have been funded. The Jobs Initiative was funded with one-time funds, and so it's sort of treated separately because it's one time, it's effectively temporary, and so we wanted to make sure that the funding supported the intent that it was used for. The Econ Committee has been briefed that the Job Creation Fund specifically, which had $10 million, was a little more slow to disperse, even though there's activity going on because businesses are applying, but they have time to indicate their interest in applying, move to the county, hire their eligible jobs, and then receive the payments. There was a table on page 3 of the committee staff packet that showed for FY26, they're projecting $834,000 of expenditures based on those applications. So if they verify the hiring, that's how much they'd spend. But I also pointed out that in the quarterly report that's attached on Circle page 1, they've indicated an even higher amount of general interest. They think that based on all the businesses, if they all apply overall, they would receive about $3.5 million. And I believe they may have a further update now that since the data that was provided, which I think was from like March 31st, there may have been even more applications. Of course, that number is not all going to go out at once. And so I think they have provided an estimate of what they believe would be spent annually for the Economic Development Fund, and they believe that number could be around $3.5 million. So once the program is up and running and there's a consistent pipeline of businesses, that they would disperse about $3.5 million a year. For now, that would end when they've dispersed $10 million in total. But if this program, if there's an interest in continuing this program permanently and making it an annual funding or annually funded program, then my understanding is they would recommend $3.5 million for that. And so that would leave some fund balance for job creation. I'm not sure the exact amount. There's also a fund balance, by the way, for the Founders Fund because only so many businesses that applied actually had qualifying applications that would allow them to receive the funds. And so they have been considering a second round of applications for Founders Fund businesses, but there's about $2.6 million there as well. So if it hasn't been encumbered, there's no program yet to have that second round that we're aware of. So there's $2.6 million there, approximately $9.1 million in the Job Creation Fund, but if you assume that there's about $3.5 million worth of need, then that goes down to $5.5 million. I think having done a separate piece of math prior to this work session, we believe that there'd be about $4.5 million to roll over from the one-time funding if the Job Creation Fund becomes an annual program funded at $3.5 million a year.
Okay, thank you. So we're at a little bit of a loss because we don't have the numbers in front of us, but prior to that discussion, I first want to say that we know that this economic Development Fund is important. It really is critical to our attraction and retention programs, and we have a lot of different incentives that hit a lot of different areas, and it's very important that we have them. I do want to talk about specifically the Jobs Initiative and look at that. We know that, for instance, the Job Creation Fund, we know that that's one of the primary incentives to supporting bringing jobs in the county, and we want to protect that. Because this was a new initiative, the fund was initially set up as a one-time appropriation for $10 million, and we didn't quite know what was going to happen and how quickly it would be utilized. But we know that that program works. We now know that it works, and in my opinion, we can move it from the one-time appropriation to annual funding, and we have an idea of how much that annual funding would be. And the annual appropriation really does show the community, the business community, that we're committed to an ongoing funding of our this economic development fund. And as we've all said, we're in a very tough position right now. We're looking at every single line item for funds. And to that end, we do have that remaining budget in the Founders Fund and the Job Creation Fund. So I would like to take that $4.5 million that is available, and I recommend that we liquidate that fund, I don't want to call it excess money. I know it's not excess money, but the fund that's the amount that I'm comfortable with in terms of taking that 4.5 and liquidating that back into the general fund. So I'd like to make a motion that we move $4.5 million from the Economic Development Fund to revert back to the general fund, which leaves remaining balance that should last for FY27.
We have a motion on the table. In second, I'm gonna turn it to staff.
Yeah,
first.
just to clarify so everyone understands exactly the numbers. So there would now be, the Job Creation Fund would be an annual program. And so if you were to take $4.5 million, that leaves $4 million as an annual appropriation for the Job Creation Fund. And so the total annual programming in the EDF would now be $7.925 million from $4.9 million roughly that it is today.
Which is, it's a good number to keep us going. And I want to hear that confirmation, please, from the county executive team.
Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez. These EDF grant programs are highly successful and highly sought after. I just want to acknowledge the innovation grant was a home run. The number of applications we received, the money went out the door. Judy Costello in the back at MCDC did a lot of legwork to get that out, to get the founders out. The MOVE grant, as we said, is a big success. We need to look at how to manage it because of the success. And likewise, the Job Creation Fund, we have a number of known commitments and expected commitments. I just speaking to MCDC team on the way in, they asked me about this because they've been talking to potential companies that would want to take us up on this offer. So based on our estimate, looking at the commitments and the expenditure schedule, because these companies don't produce and they don't get paid on day one. It could be over the next 2 years. We do anticipate that that $4 million annual appropriation is enough to carry us through the expected needs and new prospects that come in the door.
Thank you so much for stating that. It's a responsible way of dealing with a situation and embracing these grants. And again, I do mention this a few minutes ago, but I do want to, again, uplift our colleague, Councilmember Andrew Friedson, with the Jobs Initiative. This is something that he created when he was council president, and we all voted for it, and it has been successful. When we did it, we knew that we were going to have to adapt and see how it developed. And I think the number that the council vice president proposed, it makes sense. We keep honoring the program, and and I just wanted to state that. With that, I see the next person on my list is Councilmember Wojo-Wando.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the motion from the Vice President. Happy to second it. This was one of the things on my list that I brought up at a higher number, but I appreciate the explanations around this. It's actually been 2 years to the day almost that we passed this unanimously. I think it was May 7th of 2 years ago when we adopted the resolution for the $20 million special appropriation. And overall, I want to just say on the Economic Development Fund, I think it's really an important fund. When we're overseas, I see Mr. Costello in the back. When many of us have traveled, we're pushing it hard and making sure people know about the programs both locally and abroad. And I support the council staff's recommended reductions on the biotech investor incentive in the SBIR program. We appreciate that work. The Jobs Initiative had three funds: a $10 million job creation, a $7 million technology innovation fund, and a $3 million founders fund, as was mentioned. Proud to co-sponsor, as did majority of the council at that time, and it passed unanimously. The Technology Innovation Fund has, these numbers that I have, had dispersed $3.39 million to 48 awardees. It was mentioned by Mr. Hartman. Is that still accurate?
That's dispersal. They're commitments totaling the full amount.
Full amount. That's what
they get paid over time.
Right. So perfect. So the other, that's, like you said, been super successful. It's almost, the Founders Fund has also dispersed about $400,000 to 8 awardees, and those are deploying. We talked about the Job Creation Fund. It's in a different category. There's still over $9 million in the fund, and you're processing the first awards for a technology company. Is that correct?
We currently have, based on the list finance shared with me, we currently have 47, let's see, we have, 30, I'm doing my math because I got to subtract the columns, 34 companies in the pipeline that we're working with, and several others we know are coming.
Yeah, Dennis Hetman, Department of Finance. We currently have.
Dennis, just a little louder.
My apologies.
Or closer.
Yeah, certainly. We currently have 37 applicants to the tune of $5.5 million. And we also have 2 larger deals that we know are going to max this out. So of that initial 10, 7 is essentially encumbered. So that's the vicinity that we want to be within on an ongoing basis, because we do have commitments. We expanded the program too. It initially started out as 12 months. They now have 24 months to hire the maximum. And a lot of the companies that we're following up with, when they initially applied, they told us they were only going to have 5 jobs. And then as we do the outreach, they'll have 15 or 20. So we do have a little bit of a buffer in there.
So the number goes up a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. So 7 million is the number to keep in mind in terms of job creation.
And then didn't we also, in the early days, reduce the amount of jobs created from 7 to 5? Or did I read that somewhere? Or like how many jobs you had to create? Was that adjusted a little bit?
It was always 5. However, the time frame,
the 2 years,
it went from 1 year to 2 years, and they have to hold the first 5 as a base for 6 months. So there's these inherent timing effects in all of it to ensure that we're verifying that through the employment reports everything is held for the necessary time frame. But an argument can be made that in terms of leveraged multiplier economic effects of dollars spent, there's nothing else in this ballpark yet.
Got it. And so you feel comfortable. Thank you for bringing the updated data today. So that's why I'm comfortable with the motion, because I was going to suggest removing more, but I didn't have these latest numbers and what you thought the ongoing utilization would be. So that's great to hear, and I'm glad we're also going to be able to keep the program going, but also put some money back in general fund reserves. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you to colleagues. There have been a lot of conversations about this over the last few days. I really appreciate everybody working hard to try to get this right. Number one, I am very proud of the fact that we have not done something like this before in Montgomery County. We have not sent this type of statement that we wanted to step up to the plate and do the type of economic development with the type of incentives that every other jurisdiction around us is doing. We didn't create these things out of thin air. Our economic development folks looked around the region and around the country, figured out what worked other places, and we adopted some of those ideas here. That's what these three funds are doing. Really proud of the council for stepping up to that. When we started out on this, we intentionally didn't want this to be an annual commitment because we weren't sure exactly how it would be deployed and how exactly it would work. So we used one-time dollars very intentionally, and we needed to have the resources in there so that our economic development team could go out and market this, which they have all over the world. Judy Costello has been out there pounding the pavement. MCDC has been out there pushing this, and they have said to me that they lead with this as the number one incentive that they talk about, and then all the other incentives depending on the type of business that it is, and it has really helped to show our commitment. So I really am appreciative of that. I think we're at the point now where it does make sense to think about what is the annualized version, if this is something we are willing to do and commit to in perpetuity and put it into the base budget, which is what we're talking about doing now. What is the appropriate level of funding that makes finance comfortable, MCDC comfortable, and sends the appropriate message? I am personally, based on what I've heard, comfortable. I just want to make sure I hear it directly from finance because a lot of different numbers have been thrown out over the last 36 hours and including even in this meeting. And so I just want very clearly, if $4 million is remaining based on the 2-year time horizon, that allows us enough to cover everybody that's in the pipeline and allows us to actually do attraction and recruitment next year for FY27. I just want to hear that because 4 million is less than 7 million. I just want to make sure that you clarify that so that there are no misunderstandings here of what everybody is agreeing to.
7 million is the currently encumbered, fully comprehensive amount that is likely owed. On an annualized basis, our run rate is roughly 4 million.
Right. So if we do 4 million, exactly. Okay. So I just want to make sure. So 7 million is what you would need if it was one-time funds. If we're doing it as an annualized, 4 million is what you would be comfortable with because it allows us to move forward with what we have. And then, in FY28, presumably in FY29, we'd be adding 4 million every year. My goal is we actually increase that as we move forward because we're attracting so many jobs, and that would be a big win for us. That would mean we're getting more tax revenue. That would mean we have more revenues for all kinds of other things. But I think 4 million, to me, I'm comfortable with that. I really appreciate that we are now looking at this not as a one-time send a message that if you want to invest in Montgomery County, that Montgomery County is prepared to invest in you, but that this is an ongoing commitment that we are going to make. And because it's an ongoing commitment that we're going to make, it does make sense that that number would be a bit less than what it would be as a one-time fund. So because of that, and with appreciation to colleagues for working through this and the fact that we're not looking at targeting this and gutting this, which was proposed by some other folks at various different times, I really, really appreciate the work that's been done to clarify and make sure we get the numbers right, because the chart was confusing. I will acknowledge that. Just the last thing that I'll say, I hope that as we move forward, number one, that we can clean up the charts that we get during the budget, because that goes out to the public and it makes it appear like nothing is happening. There's a lot of funds that are sitting there and that are available. And it became a very attractive place for folks to look who are looking for resources. And so as we move forward, I think there's an opportunity working with finance, MCDC, the second floor of the executive branch, to make sure that it's clear. And if the chart isn't clear, that there's a footnote to say this is the amount of funds that are in the process that, basically don't touch because, we have to make budget decisions and we need to know what's encumbered. So appreciate that. And I'll just note, originally there was a conversation to have a broad-based number in an account and have 3 different funds that could be drawn from. And there was a very intentional decision not to do that because there was concern as we did the Founders Equity Fund and wanted to make sure that that had dedicated, separated funding. There was always an acknowledgement that that would take time to work through and figure out and make sure that we get it right. I think there's still opportunity for us to work that out, and looking forward to those continued conversations. I know there's a shared commitment to that, to refine that program, to make sure that we are intentionally getting those dollars out to the folks that need them. There have been challenges for who qualifies and what the qualification process is and how we're vetting those. And there are lots of conversations that need to happen. But that's the reason why that was done in the way that it was to make sure that it wasn't 10 million total for 2 funds or 20 million total for 3 funds, but it was specific dollars allocated to specific funds. We discussed that and debated that, and that was done in a very intentional way to make sure that intentional economic development means holding back some funds that may take a little longer to get right in order to make sure they get to the right place. And so I think we still have an opportunity to do some work to get that right, but I really appreciate the last minute collaboration, but collaboration nonetheless to get MCDC and finance and the county executive's office and council staff and council colleagues all working together to work through this. And for all of those reasons and with appreciation of colleagues, I will be supporting this motion and do look forward to this being an ongoing commitment that we make.
Very well said. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you very much. As we've been discussing these funds, I just want to double check that the 4.5 that we're going to be putting back in the general fund is actually one-time money.
Yeah, it just goes to resources, not to FY27.
Okay, so I just wanted to note that to make sure as we're, just keeping accounting of all the actions we've taken, so.
Yeah, and there was a similar motion on another item in econ, so it may be worth getting in writing that this is accounted for in the most recent analysis from OMB, so we can get that just to confirm, but it should be in the calculation at the end of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Lori Sells.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to clarify that the money we're liquidating, is that from what's left over from the Innovation and Founders Funds that hasn't been encumbered?
2.6 of the 4.5 would be from the Founders Fund, yes.
Okay, and then
sorry, 2.2, sorry.
Oh, okay, and then the remainder is from the Innovation Fund?
It's from the Job Creation Fund.
Okay. As Councilmember Friedson mentioned, there were $10 million set aside for any new 6-figure jobs, a $7 million fund for any innovative businesses, and then the final fund of $3 million was supposed to be a way to ensure that small minority woman-owned businesses could also have access to capital. So if we're liquidating funds that are supposed to provide more equity to this jobs bill, and the intention behind the jobs was to create jobs for everyone and accessibility to capital for everyone, I just want to make sure that if we're liquidating and we're only leaving $4 million, that whatever's left over for this fund in perpetuity is also going to align with the original intent and vision for this fund. So are we going to include, the innovation and the capital options for accessing this money, or is this only for corporations who can hire people making 6 figures, and that's who we're going to be giving this money to?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Well, no, I want to hear from the people who are putting the money out. I want to hear from the council staff, and then we can go back to Councilmember Friesen to see if.
Oh, he was going to answer your question, but go ahead if council staff can do it instead. That's fine.
I think the future of a program to provide funding similar to what was provided in the first round for Founders is still possible. They could still do that with the appropriation to the EDF, but it's not the dedicated amount that's true. I think it's a question for them what progress they've made on that second round of applications. And it's possible, with the EDF, there's always a fund balance, right? So if there's a new appropriation of $4 million annually for the Job Creation Fund, and it's not all used, there could be an additional balance that's used for a second round for the Founders Fund. But again, this is all sort of hypothetical.
Well, that's why I wanted to hear from the county executive staff who is going to be appropriating and, getting the money out the door. Are we held to the same standard as the original bill, or are we just rewarding corporations for hiring six-figure jobs?
I believe it was optimized for the portfolio effects to align the supply and demand, and that's what we're seeing. So in terms of the job creation, that is larger corporations that are hiring jobs over 100K and holding them for a long period of time. That is an active, dynamic pipeline that changes every day. The Founders Fund was expended at that 400,000, half of which is out the door, a total of 800,000. And it's been considered to reignite that, but that was the full amount that was expended for the length of that program.
What, maybe you didn't understand. If we are going to give you this money every year, are you going to be sharing this money in regards to the 3 individual funds? Or are you only focusing on the intention of the $10 million fund?
Correct. No, it would just be the Job Creation Fund.
Okay, so that's a problem, because the whole purpose of having 3 different funds was to ensure that this jobs bill was an equitable way to generate jobs and resources across the community. So if we are liquidating 2 funds that are supposed to be for founders and innovation and giving small businesses, who are the backbone of our economy, and it is Small Business Week, if we are eliminating those funds, we call them our biggest job creators. I just want everyone to be aware of what they're voting to end.
I'm going to turn it back to Councilmember Andrew Friedson to make some clarifications.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you to Councilmember Sales. The point that she's making, which is to clarify a point that I think was glossed over and was not what I had thought the motion was. So I just want to make sure that we all understand here. The decision for the Job Creation Fund exclusively was focused on the $10 million one-time funds and whether that particular fund would become an ongoing fund. That decision implied, and I thought, was clear, that the $4 million would only be for the Job Creation Fund. However, the reason for that is that my understanding was it was holding harmless the Founders Equity Fund and the Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund, because the funding is encumbered, and the Founders Equity Fund, because I don't think that there is an interest, even though it was one-time funding, in clawing back those dollars. That was done intentionally. We haven't quite gotten that program running to the extent that I would like, and that's why I was referencing earlier that there is work to do in that regard. My understanding was those funds were going to stay there, and we'd continue on with that one-time funding, and then at some point we could make a decision of what the ongoing commitment is going to be for that fund. If the $4 million is to liquidate the Founders Equity Fund, as Councilmember Sales was noting, I wouldn't be supporting the motion either, just to be very clear. And I don't think that was the intention of the motion. My understanding was in our current packet, it looks like only $900,000 has been spent. What you're saying is actually there's $7 million that's effectively encumbered just on the Job Creation Fund, and that if you change the appropriation where you left $4 million in it, basically you took the money out that is currently there that's not going to be used by the end of the fiscal year, you liquidated it, and then you reappropriated in the new fiscal year as an ongoing appropriation as part of the base budget $4 million just for the Job Creation Fund, you would be left next year with $4 million in ongoing base budget funding for an ongoing recurring Job Creation Fund, which would allow us to meet our commitments, and the balance of what's in the Founders Equity Fund, and the balance of what's in the Innovation Fund in order to fulfill the encumbered amount. And then we would have to revisit the Innovation Fund. I mean, I think we should reinvest in that too once those funds are encumbered, but we're not in a position to do that right now. So if you could clarify that, I just want to lift up what Councilmember Sales was saying, because it is different what you have shared here based on your response to her questions, and that would change my support for this, because that is what I had originally asked about prior to the meeting and we thought was confirmed. And I just, to be fair to colleagues, I don't want to speak for any colleague, but it was my understanding that that was their intention too, but I will let colleagues speak for themselves.
I apologize for the confusion, but we, our calculation assumes the existing fund balance, taking away the annual appropriation that was recommended, including $4 million now for the job creation fund. And in order to get to a 4.5 reduction, you would have to zero out the Founders Fund also. The 2.2 million is within that 4.5 million that would be reduced. That was the motion. And that's why, I didn't clarify, because in order to get that 4.5, you would have to zero out the Founders Fund. And I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier.
Yeah, I try to make very clear of what my parameters were, and I think there was some confusion there. I'm not blaming anyone. There's a lot of fast moving parts here, but that is very, very different from what was discussed. I'm not going to make a motion because I want to be respectful of colleagues. My suggestion, if there is interest, would be 2.3. I'll just put where I'm at, and colleagues can decide where that leaves them, and I'll leave the motion. 2.3 million rather than 4.5 million would be what I would be comfortable removing. That would net result in the 4 million on an ongoing basis, but it would leave the Founders Equity Fund unharmed. Now it would, that's 2.2 million less in terms of available resources than what the original motion was, but it would hold the Founders Equity harmless. That would be my personal comfort level, and I'm not sure I could support a motion that doesn't do that.
Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. So the first thing I said when we started this is we are at a disadvantage because we don't have the numbers in front of us. I thought in the past, the hour before we sat down, that this was that the 4.5 left 4.0 in the Jobs Creation Fund. That's what I thought. So I'm going to revise my motion because I agree with Councilmember Sales and Councilmember Friedson about eliminating the Founders Fund. I just want to say how disappointed I am that we're sitting here right now looking at these numbers, and I don't know if anybody has a clue what these numbers are or what they should be. We have a column on this sheet that says encumbered, and there is a 0 in the encumbered column for the Job Creation Fund, and the remaining budget on this fund is $9.16 million. And so I understand that there was a last minute, we've got these numbers wrong, or not wrong. We don't have the whole story on the numbers. So when we talk about encumbered, are those the $7 million that's encumbered? Is that deals that we've made that said we're going to give you this $7 million?
That is correct. Those are companies that have submitted their application. They've given us the job numbers, the salary, how long they intend to hold them, and that is the amount that we are setting aside to ensure we can pay them properly.
Okay.
And if I may just add to that, in terms of my understanding of what was conveyed in the spreadsheet that's on page 3 was just the ones that they verified and are ready to make those payments. That's what the 900 reflects.
So the $7 million
yes, in this fiscal year.
But so that means that the $7 million is not verified, and we're not ready to write a check to them.
In this fiscal year, correct, because each company has different timing as to how long they will hold the necessary positions. So some may go to the following fiscal year, but that is essentially our best estimate at this date of what we anticipate to be paid.
But to your point, I would also add, yes, it's not confirmed. Like if they don't hire those jobs, that much wouldn't be paid out. So it's not really encumbered, and that's the strict definition I was going by on the table.
Okay, and so in the 2 years' time, we have, how much have we dispersed and fully encumbered in the past 2 years?
Fully encumbered is 37 applications for 5.5 million, but there are two larger deals that max out the program both at 500,000 that we know have not applied yet, and we've talked to MCEDC about it, so that takes that to 6.5.
So on this, I don't know who owns this table, but none of the numbers that you just said are on this table.
That table was prepared like during the budget, so that was the point in time at a prior quarter. But as of today, we've rerun them to get the latest values.
I'm going to jump in here. I apologize for the confusion. We were asked the question: what are the known commitments, the known applications, the utilization of the funds that we expect if this were to become, instead of a pot of money, an annual program. And based on the number of applications, the number of known commitments that we know and we expect and we should be budgeting for, that's where we arrived at the $4 million. That means anything above that, that's in the fund for jobs, it's not all needed all at once, because that funding gets paid out. So when you hear $7 million of applications, that's not all going to get paid out tomorrow or in the next year. About half to 3.5 to 4 million will be paid out next year, and then the following year we expect the same amount. So if you're looking to take a one-time expenditure to an ongoing program, our best recommendation to you is that $4 million is the target. When I heard the discussion, when I heard you propose your motion, it wasn't my expectation that we were also zeroing out founders. We would advise against that. It is something that we want to keep. As Councilmember Sales mentioned, this is a program targeted at certain businesses that we want to be able to grow in Montgomery County.
Okay. I'm taking a shot in the dark here because the numbers are squishy. I'm going to make a motion for 2.3.
We have a motion by Council Vice President Balcon, second by Councilmember Andrew Friedson, which I'll support. I see Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate this conversation because we've been having this conversation trying to get the information, trying to understand this budget, trying to understand the impacts for a number of years now. I think it's important to remind everyone how this came to be as a special appropriation in a budget process in FY24 that got rolled over into FY25, that got rolled over into FY26, and now the decision we're about to make is to do one more rollover into FY27. What concerns me is that the original motion was based on data to annualize this. That was the original motion, saying there's leftover money, and based on all the information that we have, it needs $4 million to annualize. And now we're saying that's not the case. So either it is the money that's needed to annualize or it's not, and we're changing. I'm just restating the conversation. And clearly some of that conversation got lost in translation and is squishy, as was noted. And so I'm just trying to understand. I support all of this. I just want to be clear and let everybody know what we're discussing and what is happening.
I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
I appreciate and understand the frustration, and frankly, I share it. I appreciate and understand the views of colleagues. I will say besides the council president who has to oversee this process, there is nobody who is working harder to try to figure this out than the vice president. And I just want to express my sincere appreciation with her. She's been talking to me. I know she's been talking to every single colleague, figuring out what are our priorities and trying to figure out what is reasonable, what is rational, and how we figure out how to balance a budget that is a little bit of a nightmare, honestly, and has been based on premises that I don't think are fair or reasonable and isn't really sustainable. And so I just want to express my appreciation of that. I can feel her frustration, and I completely understand why, because I don't think I was her last call last night, and it was about midnight when we spoke about this item in particular. The confusion here and the misdynamic here is that staff did not understand the assignment. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm just saying where there was a synapse that misfired. I tried to be very clear. I think colleagues tried to be very clear that no one ever had an intention to zero out the Founders Equity Fund. I think that would be the absolute wrong message at the worst possible time when programs like this are being eliminated almost everywhere. And even though it has taken a little bit longer because we have to be intentional and thoughtful, and I wish some of the roadblocks weren't there, there is a shared commitment, I think an overwhelming commitment to get that right, and I am not going to waver on that. And I don't think this council is prepared to waver on that. I think you're hearing that from colleagues. I think staff looked at the totality of what is available in the funds for what could be used, and council members and most of the conversation was focused specifically on annualizing the job creation fund and what would be needed for that. The net impact of that is a little over $2 million. So that's why that had to be adjusted, because the premise of where the $4.5 million available resources came from was an assumption by staff, which was incorrect, that the will of council members was to utilize some of the available unencumbered funds from the Founders Equity Fund. That was the miscommunication. It happens. There's a lot of things going on. This is part of the challenge that we have when we don't have the numbers in front of us. I will say the level of information that was shared with the committee and the level of information that was available coming into this meeting, as Vice President Balcom noted, is not acceptable. And I think we all need to acknowledge that, and we need to commit to do better, because we're making big decisions with a lot of people who are watching us and relying on us, and we should not be making budget decisions on the fly like this. Having said that, I am comfortable knowing what we now know, and I'm glad, thank you to Councilmember Sales for honing in on this, because this was glossed over until she raised it. There is no intention whatsoever in liquidating the funds from the Founders Equity Fund. That will remain. There is no intention whatsoever in touching the funds in the Innovation Fund, because those are already encumbered and we've made commitments to businesses. It's already oversubscribed. What we're exclusively looking at is what are the available resources, one-time resources, that can be liquidated out of the Job Creation Fund that aren't needed to finish FY26 or for the duration of FY27 in order to meet our obligations and continue to market this proven successful program to attract and retain high-paying jobs, which was the intention of this program that the council unanimously approved. And then a commitment from there as part of this effort to make this an ongoing commitment on an annualized basis at $4 million. So that's, just to clarify, that's what is happening here. I do think we know what it is at this point, but it shouldn't have come down to a conversation with this level of confusion without anything written in front of us in order to get there. So I appreciate it. I seconded the motion. I appreciated where this started. I think we're ending up with the same intention of where we started. It's just that the number isn't as helpful as the originally thought of number, because in that number, embedded in that number, was liquidating funds from the Founders Equity Fund, which there is not a comfort level from colleagues, and certainly not from me, in order to do. Thank you.
Very well said. And I think Councilmember Fritzen did mention this. Encumbered means you have a binding document with a contract, right? You have a contract, it says zero, and you're looking at remaining budget. That's what we're looking at. But as you mentioned, it sounds like $2.3 million, as the motion was made, is the right, and I would say not even right, the responsible amount. And I see Councilmember Lori Sells.
Yes, thank you to my colleagues to try and make this right, but I still think we are at an impasse. The two funds that were dedicated to innovation and founders equity are not being renewed. And so, again, the original intention of the bill to create jobs across all of the three entities, which is high-paying jobs, innovative jobs, and capital to small and minority-owned businesses, is not being renewed. So that hasn't been clarified, but if that is the case, we need to say what is actually happening. We are only renewing funds for six-figure jobs to corporations. We are rewarding corporations for creating 5 six-figure jobs, and we're giving them $10,000 for each job created. We are not going to worry about funding the oversubscribed innovation and I think the capital, access to capital, which I didn't hear the small business team talk about. I didn't hear MCDC talk about. So I don't even know how we are communicating that fund to our partners who should be marketing this. So if we can clarify what is being asked to be funded in perpetuity and what will not be funded from the original intent of this bill.
I'm going to turn it to the lead sponsor of the bill.
If Ken can clarify what was intended, I just heard from Councilmember Friedson, and I'm sure he wants clarification before he votes as well.
Sure. So just, Councilmember Sales, you're correct that the Job Creation Fund is becoming an annual program, whereas the Founders Fund and the Technology and Innovation Fund would remain one-time programs. So once the matches provide for the Technology Innovation Fund, you'd have to refund it to do another round or make it ongoing, and the same with the Founders Fund. I think the reason that this has been the case is that they're working on their projects. So even the applications for the Founders Fund, they have 2 years to complete the work that they're giving in a grant for. And so I think the success of the program depends a little bit on the outcomes of all of that work before there's enough information to decide whether it should be an annual program. But yes, to be clear, the current decision keeps that as a one-time program and the Job Creation Fund is an annual program.
Okay, so I was right. You are eliminating the programs that were supposed to level the playing field for taking $20 million of taxpayer funds and putting them on the street. So I will not support this amendment, and I do not believe that it's fair to annualize this fund without ensuring there's equity across this jobs bill, which is why I supported it from the start.
I just want to remind folks that the jobs initiative that we agreed on and approved a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was a one-time use fund. That was the agreement, one time. And now we're saying that because parts of it has been so successful, we want to annualize it. But the agreement has always been one-time use funds. I'm going to turn it now to Council Vice President Balcom.
Thank you. So the Founders Fund is not being eliminated. And I may have misunderstood you, Councilmember Sales, that you said that it was being zeroed out. It's not. It has $2.6 million in it. So and just, I need to check the numbers. $400,000 has been dispersed.
That's half of the 800,000 that will be dispersed, correct? So there's.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
My apology. Yeah, so 400,000 is half of what is owed. Once they complete the conditional criteria, that final 400,000. So it will be 800 of a $3 million fund. So it is 2.2 million that remains.
right, okay, so that there is $2.2 million left in the fund, and in the past 2 years, we've used 800,000 of that fund. So there are funds available, will continue to be available for this fund.
Yes, I understand that. What happens to the innovation fund that has been maximized? I heard that's all encumbered, the 7 million.
Okay, so when we, at the committee, we had a long conversation about looking at the future of these funds, similar with the MOVE grant, which is overextended, to look at how we will fund what we're going to do with these future funds, particularly with the MOVE grant, because the MOVE grant is oversubscribed, but also we're just at the point now where the technology fund is reaching that point. So the council president has stated that in the fall, we need to take a look at whether we need legislative change or what we need to do with with the oversubscribed funds.
Yes, so that's why I'm thinking this is a premature decision. We should not be favoring one continuation of one aspect of the bill over another. So if the Founders Fund is not ready to, they still have money left over, that's fine. It will roll over into the next cycle. But with the other fund, it sounds like it's been successful, but we did not decide to annualize that fund. So I just want to understand the justification of annualizing one over the other unless we're changing the entire goal of this fund.
I'm going to respond by saying just a couple of things. Number one, as we shared in the Economic Development Committee a little while ago, we have a couple programs like the technology, the innovation one, and the MOVE program that are oversubscribed. We're going to take on those pieces of legislation in the fall to discuss. I'm going to also restate that when we approved the Jobs Act a couple of years ago, we committed that these funds were going to be only there for 1 year. And we're analyzing them as they get implemented. And I think that was the responsible thing to do. And we are reacting to what we're seeing. I honestly wish that we wouldn't be in such a catastrophic situation with our budget, so we wouldn't even think about dealing with this right now. But at this moment, because we agreed on Monday that we're not going to be doing a property tax increase and that we agreed of not touching other programs, we are looking for ways to close the budget gap. And we looked into this particular program thinking, okay, we have some funds available. Now it's $2.3 million. It has changed 30 minutes ago it was 5 and now it's 2.3. I think we're sticking with 2.3 at this point. The reason why we're doing this, and it has been so hard, not just in this particular item, but in so many other ones that we have dealt with throughout the week, is because we are seriously looking for ways to look at every single penny to ensure that we are going to do our very best to close this gap that we have in front of us. That's why we're here. So I'm just going to say right now, we have a motion on the table for $2.3 million, and it was second. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand now. All those against? Okay, so it's 10 yeses, 1 no. That motion passed. Now, We're going to move on to, I don't think there's any other discussion for this particular item. So I am looking for a motion to approve the Economic Development Fund budget as amended. Moved by Council Member Lutke, second by Council Member Friedson. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's 11. It passed. So thank you. Now I'm gonna thank you for your time. I'm going to actually, instead of going to item 14, we're gonna start with item 15. We're gonna deal with the Incubator Program's non-departmental account, and then we're gonna go back to item 14, Small Business Support Services, because they are really connected, and it makes more sense to deal with the incubators first. Give me 1 second so I can pull it up. That's item 15. So the Economic Development Committee reviewed the Incubator Program NDA FY27 operating budget, and let me just say right now, a lot of things have changed since that work session. So the committee approved the county executive inclusion of $2 million in the Incubator Program NDA base budget for a third-party contractor to manage the county's incubator network. As you all know, last year, we even did a tour. We went to Frederick, we went to Baltimore City. We looked into different models to see how we as a county could do better, right? Because when you love yourself, you always find ways to improve. You know, that's part of progress. And then at that point, during the committee recommendation, sadly, we realized that the third-party contractor that we wanted to obtain, let's just say that particular negotiation did not work. And then when the executive team came to the Econ committee to review this once again, we were told that they were having negotiations with another possible contractor. To this day, and I made the call to Mr. Ken Harman Espada yesterday to double check, that contract has not been signed yet, which leads me to say right now that, as I just mentioned in the previous items, we are looking to get money. Okay, we're looking for money right now to close our gap. So the funds that we have allocated for this incubator third-party contractor, at this point, I think that we need to just let it go and put the money put it back into our reserves. We're not moving forward. I don't think personally at this point we should be moving forward with the incubator program, looking at the financial numbers that we have in front of us. And also, I'm just trying to make it very positive. Look at the bright side of the situation. We're going to have a new county executive very, very, very soon. Once the new person comes in and once we have a new strategic plan from MCEDC, we can go back and talk about this incubator program and how we are going to envision that work into the future. So I'm going to see it in that sense. And frankly, it's not even worth it to go through the report, because I'm just saying right now, we need to pause everything. And before I turn it to colleagues, I'm asking if the county executive team wants to add anything. Don't tell me that you're about to sign the contract, because that's not going to work. It's done. So I hope you're not saying that right now.
Well, clearly there's pencils down until this conversation's over. And I just want to say, I understand where the council is, that we've done a lot of talking in the last 5-6 years about the incubators and where to take them. We've made a lot of progress. We added staff where there wasn't staff. We added support where there wasn't support. We upgraded facilities when they needed to. But as you saw on the committee's tours, we're nowhere near where our competitors are, and in what our innovation ecosystem needs in Montgomery County to truly represent an area that's number 3 and wants to be number 1. I understand that, and I do appreciate the committee's support, especially last year, in providing the funding. You're right. It does take time to find the right contractor. It is a difficult process at times. We are at a place where, and we'll have to discuss at a later date what this means for the staffing of the incubators. As you know, last year, we gave up a position because we knew this transition was coming. And without this transition, we have one dedicated staff person for 4 incubators. We do have a contract with a company that does facilities, and they do things like staffing the desk. But it's nowhere near the types of services that we've seen in other places. And I'm not going to say we're ready to sign a contract because as pencils are down until the council makes its actions on the budget. But our expectation was to have a start date of June 1. But without this funding, we'll cease work and hold for the time being.
And as you know, I was very excited about this, but it's just we can't do it this year, and that's just the reality. And then we're going to talk about staffing under the small business support services because it dealt with staff that you're talking about. So that's why I switched the items to deal with incubators first, and then we'll go back. That's exactly why. I see Councilmember Will Jowondo.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. You will get it, I promise. And I appreciate the comments. As we've been talking all week, we're looking for things that where we can save some money, where we're trying to reassess the strategy. And this is not, we believe in the incubators. I've been to many of them. I'm supportive of the concept of incubation, the Business Innovation Network, Silver Spring Center, Rockville, Germantown, Cybersecurity Center. But this has been a point of frustration, and I think we need to recapture this at this point and just start over as working together as far as how we want to move this program forward. So I agree with the Council President's comments, and so I move that Council reduce this NDA by $2.5 million, which would cease this contract that you're currently in negotiation with as we work together to see where this needs to go.
We have a motion on the table. Can I get a second? Or would you have a comment? Second by Council Vice President Balcom, and I'm going to ask staff to.
Sure. The funding the council provided for this purpose last year was $2 million. Yes. An initial $500,000 would.
Oh, it's not 2.5. I'm sorry. Did I say 2.5? Yeah, yes. I'm sorry. I was reading the 500 from last year, or I was reading something else. $2 million.
So we have a motion for $2 million to be reduced, and it has been second. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak about this painful motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. So now we have I think we can move forward to the rest of the. I need a motion to approve the Incubator Program's non-departmental account budget as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Council Vice President Jowondo, second by Councilmember Don Lukey. All those in favor, please. Oh, go ahead. Hold the motion.
Sorry. So I know we're going to talk about the personnel cost in the econ, but I think we need to deal with it here as well, right? So, I guess the motion is to cut the 2 million, which means that the personnel costs remain.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Can you clarify that? Because we got to go back to the other item.
Yeah, good afternoon. Nadia Clute for the record. So based on last year, we reduced a staff from the incubator. So that the staff was going to be shifting to the business center eventually because we didn't want to have somebody lose their job position. But at this point, based on what we just understand is the fact that we need 2 positions over at the incubator, and we still need business liaisons over at the business center.
So the point will be, and I can ask staff to clarify, once we go back to the previous item, which is the small business support service, that's where the staffing was at. But if there's another way that we can do this, please let me know.
No, that's fine if we handle it there.
Yeah.
In the executive's budget, we shifted the remaining positions into small business support services out of the incubators. Clearly, those positions can do work wherever we assign them, but that was the reason for the shift.
Yeah. So it's okay if we make the motion just as I was about to make it, and then go back to the other item, right? Okay. So I'm gonna, we have a motion that has already been second. I'm gonna ask again, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed? Thank you. Now we're gonna go to item 14, which is the small business support service non-departmental account. And for that one, so we would, in that particular item, we talk about the shifts from the county for positions. So if you can please go through the staff report, and I want to make sure that the county executives team is in agreement of what changes need to be made here as it reflects the vote that we just made on the incubator.
Yeah, so the county executive is recommending to shift the 2 positions that were managing the incubators to the business support services. I would point out they're already on the staff essentially of the business center team and managed by the business center manager. So where they're programmed in kind of doesn't necessarily affect their role, but formally, yes, there were 2 FTEs that would have been in incubators that would have been phased out. And so not approving this would keep them within the incubator's NDA, but it's the same individuals still managed by the same manager.
But the question is, so I can be clear, do we need to make any changes to the Economic Development Committee recommendations on this particular item, or is approving it as is enough?
Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, for that question. If we were to manage the incubators, we are without the operator, we are heading into the next fiscal year short a position that we had in the past. We had 2 dedicated staff people just for the incubators, working with the tenants, resolving problems, helping them make referrals, doing the oversight of the contract for the facilities work. The 3rd position that was in the NDA was a position that assisted Judy Costello in the innovation ecosystem, doing things like the RFP that we're now putting aside. So there are, in order to do the work, we really need to return to the staffing that we had a year ago. Otherwise, we're going to be doing less with less.
So from what I have in front of me, because the committee recommendation is there are 4 non-competitive awarded economic development contracts. Let me see the next one. So, okay, the county executive recommended 2 program manager positions from the incubator program NDA to the outreach and community liaison duties. That's what I'm asking. Does anything here have to change based on the previous vote?
Yes, you would have to just reject the committee's recommendation. I think what Mr. Hartman-Espada is saying is that he would prefer to see an additional FTE, but that's not on the table right now. Someone would have to move to make that.
Can I make a motion to move that?
Yes, I move to add a position.
So Council Vice President Balcon is moving to add the position. Can I get a second? Councilmember Evans has second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. So with that, it will fix the situation right now. And if there isn't anything else that comes up, just let me know. But I think it should be clear.
So you took the motion to add an FTE to the incubators, and do you need to make a motion to reject the committee's recommendation to shift the positions then formally? I mean,
we can do that. Can we? Yeah, we can I have a motion to reject? Moved by Council Member Stewart. Second by Council Vice President Balcon. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. Thank you for that. So that should solve the situation. And with that, we have an amended Small Business Support Service non-departmental account budget. Can somebody move it? Moved by Councilmember Don Lukey. Second by Councilmember Stewart. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed. Thank you for your time. We are going to move on to item 16, the Montgomery Coalition for Adult English Literacy non-departmental account. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Jowondo.
Thank you, Madam President. Montgomery County Coalition for Adult English Literacy, NDA, McHale, as they come down, Mr. Etienne and team. The Education and Culture Committee recommended approval of the FY27 operating budget for McHale as submitted by the county executive. It was a recommendation of $2,652,078, but that is 2.5% increase over last year, but that is going to be pending the nonprofit inflationary adjustment, which again, yesterday we took action to put 10 tranches of 0.5, so that number could go up, reflecting that adjustment. We had a committee session talking about the over $144,000, 44,000 people, adults in Montgomery County who speak English less than very well, and the great work that Michaela is doing to reach 8% of them, which is up, but we need to continue to go up. I just want to acknowledge the important work you're doing in the midst of a very tough environment for our immigrant community, and just thank you. We talked about that as well. So it was a unanimous recommendation, Madam President.
Thank you for that. Does council staff have anything else to add?
Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a recommendation by the Education and Culture Committee. Before I call for the vote, are there any other comments that you wish to make?
Thank you, Madam President. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Good afternoon, council members. First, I just wanted to mention that we have with me Tom Colling, our director.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry?
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Gerard Etienne, Executive Director. We have Tom Colling, our Director of Finance and Operation, and Rudy Jung, our Director of Programs. We also have some staff back there. Our entire staff would have been there, but we have another program running this afternoon. I just wanted to share some additional information from when I was at the Education and Culture Committee on the 27th. I mentioned that we were doing some scenario planning based on potential budget reductions, and I just kind of wanted to share some of these numbers with you to help you make a decision. So we wanted to put it in terms of the number of classes and the number of learners that would be affected. So a 1% cut in our budget would result in 6 fewer classes, and it would impact 92 learners. So you can do the math from that point. So a 5% budget cut would result in 30 fewer classes and some 460 learners being affected. And I really want to emphasize that these are adult learners who are in vulnerable populations who are facing extraordinarily difficult circumstances. And these classes, I always have this concern that sometimes ESOL is viewed as quote unquote just English classes, and they are so much more than that. They are a pathway to economic stability and connection to community. So I just wanted to share that information to help you as you make this extraordinarily difficult decision. And then the last thing that I'll say is I spoke with many of you or had meetings with folks from your staff. I can't thank you enough for the time that you've taken, because some of these meetings were very much last minute, so I really appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing this very successful partnership with Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation and for all the work that you do. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a recommendation from the Education and Culture Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. Thank you so much for your time. So now we're going to move on to item 17, Kid Museum non-departmental account. I'm going to now turn it back to Chair Yawando.
Thank you, Madam President. We have the Kid Museum team making their way down, and our Director of Recreation. The Education and Culture Committee unanimously recommended support for the County Executive's FY27 budget for Kid Museum NDA. It's an appropriation of $2,496,945, which is the 2.5 inflationary increase estimate, but also, again, pending the last conversation, depending on what we take, action we take later in the week or next week. Kid Museum's been a partner since 2014. This NDA was created in 22 and consolidates since last year, our general operating support for the organization, 3 contracts, facility operations at their Bethesda Metro Center and Davis Library locations, administration, and community-based STEM programming, much of which is in our schools. They've served over 21,000 students through the semester-long programming since FY22, and 60% of those participants are Black or Latino, and 50% are from under-resourced communities. So we appreciate the work that they've done. We did have discussion about what their current budget landscape and grants and other things that are under attack from the federal administration. So I'm sure Carr can speak to that as well, but it was a unanimous recommendation to support the county executive's recommendation.
Thank you for the report. Does council staff have anything else to add? Okay. And I'm going to turn it to council members. Councilmember Andrew Fritzen.
Thank you very much to the committee. Thank you, Council President. Thank you to Kid Museum and Department of Recreation. It's good that the Recreation Department Director is back because he was there in the beginning. My tradition, I would say Bereshit, in the beginning, out there driving around the county trying to find a site that ended up becoming the basement of Davis Library, which has now become the current site that all of us are familiar with. I just want to reiterate to colleagues not only the value of Kid Museum, which has a unique partnership with the school system, which has been award-winning and recognized, and I hope can continue in a significant way. I think it's just at the beginning of getting to the place that we had wanted it to be with that partnership, and really is an invaluable resource. And we talked extensively last year. I won't reiterate here, but the intentionality that the hub and spoke model of really digging deep into the community to serve our communities that don't have access to this type of after school programming, STEM programming, and other resources, and are really filling a crucial gap that MCPS really can't do on its own. So that's number one. Number two, I just want to make sure that the history here, some of us will remember, but I think it's important. The whole purpose of us moving to an NDA was part of a brokered agreement that was a transition from what had been capital support, transition into ongoing operating support. And that was a brokered agreement between the council, the executive branch, and Kid Museum, reflecting that the permanent home that was originally being sought after, there's a number of sites that were being looked at, including a couple in Silver Spring, ultimately didn't come to fruition. And so they ended up entering into the lease. There wasn't clarity in terms of when the capital was going to be needed, and so we transitioned that into operating. And then the NDA was what we did to take the skills for the future that I worked on with Hans Riemer and with other colleagues back in the old Fed committee that Councilmember Giwando was part of and was on, the community grants and some other funding that were happening, and to consolidate it all into one place to try to bring clarity, consistency, and stability to this effort. So I just want to note that and make sure that we reflect that. And then the last piece I think is important, Kid Museum gets support from the county and from MCPS. And so the decisions that we make with MCPS will have an impact, an operating impact on Kid Museum as well, and that will have an impact on the very same programs and otherwise that we are doing in MCPS. So I just think it's important, the context here and a little bit of the history, to put that forward, express my appreciation to Ms. Lesser and to all of the folks at KID for all the work that you do, and express my appreciation as well to Director Albernaz, who was under the other duties as assigned in his previous iteration worked on this effort as well. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you for those words. I see Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. Director Albanaz, it's good to see you. Ms. Lesser, thank you. I appreciate the background that Councilmember Friedson provided. Want to add to that, as Kid Museum was looking for a permanent home all throughout the county, Ms. Lesser and I were both on a hard hat tour of the then newly opened Silver Spring Library. My organization ended up going into the lower level, and you found a bigger facility. Moving ahead, I in conversations with you and others, just want to talk about possible changes, particularly with the ownership where the building is, and in potential cost savings moving forward, which I think is relevant, right? Because it is possible. Can you just talk about the ownership changes a little bit? That might be good news for everybody.
Sure. Hello, all. Cara Lesser, Executive Director of Kid Museum. Thank you for including us in this conversation. The building that we are in is a leased arrangement for us. The current owner is Brookfield Properties, which is a multinational real estate company that has had a very large presence in the DC area, and my understanding is they are fully withdrawing from the DC region now. So that it's not just this particular building, but given all the changes in the DC real estate market and federal offices in particular, they are exiting the DC market. The good news, we think good news, and my understanding is that this deal has not quite closed yet, so, but is that this is going to be transferring to a local owner. So I think that is promising if this goes forward, to have real investment in our community. This is, they have purchased other buildings right in the same vicinity, and so really looking to deepen their engagement in the economy of the county. And, we are an anchor tenant in this building at this point. We are in that relationship, as Councilmember Friedson was saying, through this relationship that we have been able to, our public-private partnership that this whole organization has been founded based on. So, there's been a lot of due diligence in that sale, and they are looking to us to continue our commitment to under our lease, and we have, said that we hope that we can live with that, continue to live up to that expectation. Again, as a public-private partnership, we are reliant on our county funds to live up to that. As all of you know, we are always out there fundraising and tapping into our corporate and individual and foundation philanthropic sources as best we can. Those are all very much squeezed in today's environment. Federal funds have been a roller coaster ride for us. That is 10% of our budget, and that is very much in flux. And MCPS and other districts have been important paid partners for us. We put Montgomery County students first in line for all of our services, and we very much want to continue to do that. But we are concerned about disrupting our economic model in this moment.
Thank you for sharing that, especially wanting to lift up the potential change in ownership of the building, having somebody local who understands the local value, the regional value, and hopefully will expand upon the partnership that exists. So thank you for your continued work.
Thank you for the questions and the comments. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. We have a recommendation from the Education and Culture Committee, and we don't have anything else from staff, right? I ask you just in case. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed. Thank you so much for coming today. We are going to move on to item 18, Climate Change Planning Non-Departmental Account. For that one, I'm going to turn it to Chair Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. As our climate team comes on up, the FY27 operating budget for the Climate Change Planning NDA is just less than $500,000, $488,000, $344. Throughout the day, throughout the week, we've talked about same services budget. This is not a same service budget. It is the exact same budget. Please note the difference, the exact same budget. And over the course of the year, Ms. Kogel-Smucker has been working to help with comprehensive coverage and enhancing our weather data with the University of Maryland, flood resilience education for vulnerable populations, and also identifying potential changes to some of our building and development codes, including future flooding and technical support for the electric micromobility lending program. All of this on a small but mighty budget. And the T&E committee unanimously recommends approval.
Thank you for that report. I'm going to turn it to staff. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed?
Just a note in the packet, I broke out the major categories of spending in the non-departmental account. There are no staffing costs in it. It's just operating expenses. And the two categories, the first one we've noted is climate fellows and interns. And that one's been fairly steady the last few years once it was put in. The other item is a more general account for initiatives that arise throughout the county government that the NDA and its staff can assist with. So those initiatives change from year to year depending on the opportunities. So you heard a little bit about what was going on in 26, and the staff here can also speak to things that they may see coming up as well for 27 and beyond.
Thank you for highlighting those points. And I see Ms. Sarah Kogel-Smucker. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we start voting?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chair Glass, for the excellent summary. And thank you, staff. Sarah Kogel-Smucker, Climate Change Officer. I think small but mighty is an excellent description. But for members of the public and committee, council members who aren't on the committee, to be clear, the non-departmental account is a flexible tool to focus on implementing the climate action plan, interdepartmental initiatives, climate action that doesn't fall in any one department's budget, and emphasizing measures that advance racial equity and social justice. And so just as staff said, it's really what is the biggest high priority opportunity that arises and having the funds to do that. And when departmental budgets are constrained, when we are not doing large enhancements, when it's largely same services, having that flexibility to continue to advance measures that first, are pollution prevention, mitigate pollution, but also our climate resilience. So protect our communities from climate change that is happening and is going to get worse. And with that flexibility, we have really shifted towards a significant investment in climate resilience each year. So last fiscal year 26, it was about 68% of the budget went to climate resilience. So in addition to Chair Glass, just to give as an illustrative example of how this fund is so helpful, is there's new protections for outdoor workers from the state. They're regulations, but the state doesn't have a budget to publicize them. And so OEMHS, CEX, DEP, and Climate Fellows in partnership with Department of Labor and in partnership with community organizations like CASA have done outreach to extreme heat to outdoor workers who are protected by these regulations but don't know about it, and their employers. So that's just one of the many examples of how we can protect our communities, make sure that we're protected from climate change, and spur these interdepartmental initiatives that we need from climate action.
And I love that you are explaining all that work that is so critical for Montgomery County and for our residents. And I thank you again for all you do. I have said this before to you in front of everybody, but I do think that you're really you're somebody who puts a lot of heart into your work, and it shows. So I wanna thank you for that. I'm gonna turn it now to Councilmember Keith Stewart.
I'm going to be super quick because Ms. Kogel-Schmucker, you highlighted all the things I wanted to highlight as well, because I think the small, mighty, and flexible are really the hallmarks and why we need to keep this NDA funded at the levels it has been, because there are so many needs. And as we get great work coming out of the state, but not funded, and we need to do things here, partnering with our Office of Emergency Services as we're seeing climate impact every facet of our lives is so important. So I just want to say thank you as well for your work, and look forward to approving your budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Balcom.
So rounding out the T&E committee with the Love Fest, right? I just want to lift up what an asset we have with you at the helm of this initiative. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we've spent the entire week looking for pennies and dollars and millions of dollars to help fund the budget. And this is probably one of the best deals we've got going in terms of the amount of money we put in and the amount of value we get. So I just want to thank you.
Very well said. With that, we have a recommendation from the Transportation and Environment Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to item 19, Department of Finance. And as they come here, I'm going to turn it to the chair of the GO Committee, Chair Stewart.
Great. The GO Committee reviewed the Department of Finance's budget. There was really only one item, getting back to it, that we took 2 reductions in our review, and this was unanimous. Going back to the Council President's guidance when we started our budget process, that we did not have the time to take up the special tax district that the county executive put forward. There were costs associated with that. There was the special tax district administration, that was 3 FTEs, and the special tax district implementation. We in the committee reduced both of those items since we would not be taking them up during this year's budget. And other than that, it is a same service budget for the finance department. That's the committee's recommendation.
Beautiful, straightforward, simple. Anything else to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all your work. I don't see any questions. With that, we have a recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any pass. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 20, Office of the County Executive. And I'm going to turn it back to the Chair Stewart.
Great. All right. We reviewed also the Office of the County Executive and approved this budget. I do want to just highlight that last year we had a conversation about the OBIT score for the Office of the County Executive, and there was some confusion because they didn't do it last year and we weren't sure why. So we talked about it, and glad that the Office of the County Executive did the OBIT score this year and did score a 7 out of the 11, and demonstrating a sustained commitment to advancing racial equity and social justice. So glad that occurred. The GO Committee did recommend the county executive's budget. It is pretty much a same service budget, and the only addition we had was looking at in addition to the internal costs for the CoStar contract renewal, and we had an increased cost for consulting for the internal audit, a shift of some positions, and the community-based contracts from the county executive's office to the small business support services office. And so those were the items that we discussed in the FY27 operating budget for the county executive's budget. That's it. That's sorry.
Thank you so much for the report. Does council staff have anything else to add?
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to note a very minor technical update since the GO committee met. At the Small Business Support NDA, one of the line items involving the shift of community-based contracts to the Small Business Support Services NDA was discussed by Econ Committee. And in that meeting, it was delineated that there was $777,836 of that total of $222,000 some that were non-related contracts that were expiring. And so that was placed on the reconciliation list as a reduction from the county of the office. I apologize, it's Friday. The Office of the County Executive. And it would be an enhancement to the Small Business Support NDA. But just wanted to note that changed since committee.
Yes, thank you so much for noting those. Does the county executive team have anything else to add? No, but I appreciate you being here. I don't see anybody wanting to have a question. With that, we have a recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you for coming today. Next, we have item 21, and that's Board of Elections. I'm going to turn it back to the chair, Stuart.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We also reviewed on April 10th the Board of Elections FY27 budget, and I just want to thank everyone who's here from our Board of Elections. We know this is a very busy time of year for you, so glad you are here. All the items that we reviewed in their budget this year, none of them were required to be on the reconciliation list. We did look at an increase in election judge stipends, money for temporary staff, an increase in the election worker management system licenses and software program that they're using now, overtime expenses, postage and sample ballots, election worker management system and maintenance, and sample ballot printing. But as I noted before, these are all pretty much same services or not needed to be on the reconciliation list. So we recommended unanimously for this budget to be approved.
Excellent. Any other comments from council staff? No? Are there any comments?
Just thank you for all the support that we've gotten from you in previous years and this year.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. David. I appreciate it. I don't see anybody wanting to have a question or comment. With that, we have a recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously? Thank you for your time and for being here. We're going to move on to the last item of the agenda. Item 22, Device Client Management Non-Departmental Account. Turning it back to Chair Stewart.
Great. Waiting for our folks from TEBS to come and Dr. Torregas. So the Device Client Management Budget, NDA, is actually a really interesting one that we have spent a good deal of time over the years talking to TEBS about. And I will say over the last 3.5 years, they have very thoughtfully looked at this budget and have reduced it as we think about the replacement of our systems, our hardware, and I know we have additional information that they provided us regarding the replacement cycle for devices and how they're approaching it this year. The committee did recommend approval as submitted their FY27 budget, but we could go through the additional information that was provided since the committee meeting. But just do want to underscore the work that's been ongoing in this NDA over the last few years and really appreciate the attention to it. I don't know if Dr. Torregas wants to, or someone from TEBS wants to walk us through that.
Just very briefly, thank you very much. The DCM budget NDA was approved 3-0 at the GO committee and was not on the reconciliation list because the items of the increase were all needed and supported by existing ongoing contracts. On page 3, you will find these 3. If the council would like to discuss these contracts, they're already signed and therefore did not need to go on the reconciliation list. So this is basically the budget that was already approved by the GO committee. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I'm going to turn it now to Chair Yowando.
Technically, not of this committee, but yeah, but, you know, I do not want Councilmember Stewart's job. She's doing a good job. Thank you. I will just take a couple minutes because I'm the one that asked for this to be removed off the consent calendar, and I appreciate the indulgence of the team and my colleagues. And we had a good talk. Our team had a good talk with your team this week, and this was a $1.148 million, 6.4% increase on a $19 million NDA in a year when we're searching desperately for resources. So it was something that caught my attention and was on my list and of potential reductions. And at the time, I still believe it was important to kick the tires on it a little bit. And so I appreciate TEB's leadership, and I know Director Roper had an engagement today, but Deputy Director Randolph and team for meeting with my team and walking us through this, and Mr. Tregas as well, of what the increase covers. And I realize that, you know, this is critical. We can't do without this. We need to make sure that Microsoft 365's licenses are working. As annoying as it is to have to do my password every few, we know it's important. And I've been here long enough that I'm running out of passwords, but I started reusing them. So this is for the entire licenses for the enterprise, the 40 plus departments, and every county employee who uses email here, so in Word and Excel and Teams. So, and also funds the help desk and the device replacement, as Councilmember Stewart was talking about. So I am not going to make a motion in this area, but I did want to just thank you and concur and say I concur with the GO committee's recommendation and appreciate that you all running me through it. I did have one question related because it's since I have you here. We just went through the migration of the county's website, and we all experienced that up here in real time when we were shut down for a period of time. My office, and I'm sure others and residents have found that there's a lot of broken links. And we're receiving error messages in trying to navigate the website and find county information. And we've started to get complaints from residents in the office as well. And just this week, we heard from an HOA member who was trying to learn and submit comments on an MCDOT project, for example, and the link to access the information was broken. We were able to connect them directly to DOT, but that's one instance, and I'm concerned that there's more of these, and because we've encountered a few. So I just want to know, how are you remediating this, and what's the plan? And have you worked with Google or anyone else to kind of rescan and see which links are broken? And so what are we doing to make sure all the old information has migrated to new and that the links are working?
Good afternoon, Karen Randolph, Chief Operating Officer. We had identified, I believe it was over 75,000 broken links. This is pre as well as post implementation or go live of the website. What the team has done, our hypercare team, who's taking all of the issues related to the implementation, they've actually gone through and made corrections of the majority of those. And I think as of this week, they had almost remediated the majority of the links that were identified as broken.
You said 75,000?
Yes, there were a lot of.
Okay. Do you have a number of how many have been remediated at this point and a timeline for the remainder?
I may have to get back to you with that, but let me just see if I can pull up some information. Keisha, yes. I don't know off the top of my head.
You can get
but
back
he's
to
going
it.
check.
I just think, can you just get it? I think send it to everybody of like just the number that you've repaired and how long you think till the rest of you repaired. If you have it by which agency, I just want to know, because when we get questions, I know you're working on it.
Yes.
But if you could just follow up with
And
that.
they are also working with Google as well.
Okay.
So that the scanning and it
To
all
know
connects.
if they've been, okay, good.
Yes.
Good. Obviously a big priority for residents, and I know you know that. So yeah, if you could just follow up, I just wanted to bring it up since we had you, and I appreciate the engagement with your team and support the GO recommendation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today. We have a recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Oh, we have a question by Councilmember and Fritzen.
Just a point of personal privilege. I just want to wish a happy Mother's Day
To who?
to all of the mothers. It's an important. It's well, I will say it's a particularly important one in my household, but I'll save that to my wife because it's our first and her first Mother's Day. But I wanted to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. I always say that our world is sustained by mothers. And right now, this body is also sustained by mothers. So happy Mother's Day to all the mamas, and thanks for all the hard work.
That's very sweet. Thank you for saying that. I do have to make a comment before we adjourn. This is what's going to happen next. Tonight, and I'm going to be meeting with staff afterwards. Tonight, everybody here is going to be receiving an email with the updated reconciliation list, every single decision that we have made so far today. Basically, you're going to see instructions there. And then we're going to be back here on Tuesday, as you all know. There's going to be session on Tuesday, not Monday. Tuesday, there's going to be a session unless something crazy happens over the weekend, which I doubt, but hey, well, maybe just keep it blocked just in case, not looking at your face. But my intention is to have everybody back on Tuesday and send you that list tonight so we can process the information of where we are on this budget. With that, thank you so much for your patience. And I know that if anybody out there still wonders if any of us care about this county, I think we have shown that we do. And it's been really tough, but we have done it with professionalism and also understanding that we're about to make a really tough decisions next week. And that's all I'm going to say. And we are adjourned.